Hey everybody, Jang here from UltimateRC.com with a look at the Kyosho DRX VE ready-to-run brushless rally car. Depending upon where you look, you'll see this referenced as a 1/8 scale or a 1/9 scale. In reality, its overall size relative to the full-scale car it's based on puts it at just over 1/8 scale, 1/7 point something at the scale. Beneath that nicely painted, not printed body, you will find an adaptation of the 1/9 scale Kyosho DBX four-wheel drive buggy chassis. Fundamentally, the whole thing is just a narrowed buggy with a car body on it. The suspension features big-bore plastic threaded body shocks with aluminum caps and aluminum knurled adjusters for the ride height. There are a few different shock mounting options, and you can also adjust your camber and toe, both front and rear. The car uses pillow ball knuckles and it's symmetrical front to rear and left to right. That should be good for balanced handling, and it's also very smart for reducing the number of unique parts. Here are some parts that I don't like at all. They're the dog bone shafts. They're hexagonal in cross-section and very, very thin. I'm pretty sure it's the stock that's used to make some Allen wrenches. And on the buggy and truck versions of this platform, I've seen those things twist like pretzels. I've got all my fingers and toes crossed, hoping that the smaller and lighter wheels and tires of the rally car will allow these drive shafts to actually survive. Electronics are partly shielded by this nice Lexan cover with a semi-transparent finish to it. Should help keep dirt and rocks from getting into places where you really don't want them. The ESC under there is an Orion branded Hobbywing Easy Run 60 amp sensorless unit. It's paired to a 4-pole short 550 or long 540 can 2400 kV motor with a steel Mod 1 pinion driving a plastic spur. The battery tray is set up to accept a 2S hardcase LiPo or something of that size. And you only open up one side of it, bending it up like this, a little bit awkward, to allow you to put in larger 5000 mAh sized 3S packs. There's a spacer that you can put underneath the posts over on the left-hand side. That's included in the package. The wheels and tires on the DRX are unsurprisingly proprietary. They have 12mm hexes and 8th scale style beads. The tires are a licensed Pirelli gravel tire style, and they use a medium rubber compound that seeks to strike a balance between longevity and traction. The controller is Kyosho's 2.4 GHz Synchro. This gives you analog trims, steering dual rate, and EPAs for throttle. Simple and straightforward, and radio feels pretty good. I didn't mention this earlier, but actually when you get this car right out of the box, it is not fully assembled. You need to put on these body posts yourself. It's really easy though, just a couple of body pins each. This bag also includes some basic tools and the 3S battery spacer I mentioned earlier. When the rubber hit the road, the DRX VE topped out at 26 miles per hour. 26. Wide open throttle, ESC recalibrated, full EPAs, fully charged, healthy, strong 2S LiPo pack. It's kind of disappointing, but a 2400 kV motor is really not designed to be run at such low voltage. You can gear up for a little bit more speed, but to really get the power out of this thing that it's capable of delivering, you need to go up to 3S in LiPo. The car's handling is not too bad though. It has a ton of body roll, but that's to be expected from a car that's tuned to be a little bit on-road, a little bit off-road. The body roll is really exaggerated though by the extremely thin and very tall rear body mounts. They flex so much that the entire body actually shifts to the left and to the right. The car shows a little bit of understeer under power until you really goose the throttle in, and then the rear end will start to snap around. On dusty pavement it works out pretty well. On a 3S LiPo with no other changes, this thing really wakes up. Now we're looking at a top speed just shy of 40 miles per hour, 40. With this much power, you start to drift a lot more easily and you start to really work those diffs, not to mention the tires. It remains very controllable though, with no traction rolling, and I was happy to find out that the stock steering servo is just fast enough. Of course, faster still would be better, but I didn't find myself held back by it. The remainder of this footage is going to be on 2S LiPo, which is what most people have. On a high grip surface like this prepared on-road track at NorCal Hobbies in Union City, California, you don't want to drift in the corners as that gets really slow. Driving within the limits of the tires on a high grip surface is not at all a challenge. The car drives very smoothly and it transitions from left to right very well thanks to a good setup with the shock springs and shock oil. Overall grip is limited by the tires though, so you do have to really slow down in the turns. Overall, this was a pretty respectable, no drama driving experience. With one exception, Out there in the corner as I got onto the main back straight, I would experience some intermittent control glitches. Throttle and steering would alternately go out for a fraction of a second each, as if I was running an old 27 MHz AM radio. More on that later. The DRX VE felt a little bit more at home on dirt, specifically hard-packed dirt with a little bit of loose layer on top. This is kind of like a scaled-down version of the surface you'd find in Rally Turkey or Argentina. Even though most full-scale rallying is done on tarmac, most rally fans prefer the gravel and dirt where you can see a lot of drifting and a lot of rooster tails. My only complaint here was that the car did start to want to step the rear end out a little bit more than I wanted, and I had to be conservative with the throttle and counter-steer extra early. Here the stock steering servo did start to feel just a little bit slow. For this type of driving, I would recommend removing the front toe out to make initial turn-in a little less aggressive, while increasing the rear toe in to counteract fishtailing under power. On rougher gravel and looser dirt, the DRX had a little bit more trouble. The tires struggled more for grip, while the stock suspension setup started to feel noticeably over-dampened. The way the car was handling suggested that it would be pretty tough to get it set up well for this type of terrain, without going with much softer tires. I also had an annoying recurring problem of gravel and rocks getting stuck in the wheels here. The knuckles actually have debris scrapers in them to try to prevent this, but simply put, they didn't do their job very well. Next up, full-on off-road track. Why do I drive all of my rally cars on off-road tracks? Because there are a lot of these out there and rally car drivers want to be able to drive on them. In contrast, there are very few scale-style rally car tracks. Unfortunately, rain had caused a little bit of damage to the surface just before this run, so I had to run a little bit of an odd course around it. The nice thing about the rain damage is that it left a nice little loose layer on the top, which allowed me to drift through some corners, which looks really cool. Over the jumps, the DRX is mediocre. It gets pretty bumpy over the landings and the rear feels like it's riding on pogo sticks. Also up there at that corner, I just had another glitch. If you look at my full raw driving video from this session, you'll see that several times I actually completely lost control of the car at that distance. The radio range seemed pretty poor and other DRX VE owners have confirmed this. Beyond about 100 feet, things start to get sketchy. The local indoor track had a much smoother surface and a lot more traction with its damp clay. Here traction was really not an issue at all, but the jumping performance was still a bit sketchy. Any body lean when you enter a jump will throw you off, and downsiding landings well is essential. Without doing that, the thing just kind of hops all over. Now let's talk durability. This here was taken from my first day of driving with the DRX on 2S only. This was after less than 2 packs of driving, already showing a lot of wear there. The body also took a beating quite quickly. It's really too thin for off-road driving. What sucks is that this body costs $60, clear and unfinished. That's about twice the cost of a normal shell. If you get it pre-painted and all decaled up, you're talking about $130 US. 130. Ouch. The front bumper also took quite a beating and really started to disintegrate. At the end of day 1, it was hanging on by a thread, and at the end of day 2, it was out of there completely. After gluing this back in and reinforcing the body with drywall tape and shoe goo, it was time for the real deal. Well, aside from the body and bumper, it survived. Which really shouldn't be a surprise at all, given that these full-fendered, big-bodied cars take all their direct force of impacts pretty much to the body. The drive shafts also aren't showing any signs of bending just yet, but I'm still very skeptical about them. In all, the DRX VE really acts like a scale rally car. It does not like terrain that has more than the smallest bumps, and it really doesn't enjoy getting very far off the ground. Relative to some of the competition, it's kind of prissy in that way. But if you have the great fortune of being able to drive on a scale-style surface, something which is very hard to come by for most people, the car will reward you with a fun scale-style driving experience. This car also has a leg up on its competition in terms of price, being about $40 to $80 cheaper than any of the other ready-to-run, larger than 10th scale rally cars. That can make it a pretty good value. I've heard a lot of concern in the community about the price of Kyosho parts, which can often be quite exorbitant. But I checked out the full parts list at A-Main Hobbies, and everything for the DRX looks pretty reasonable. On the negative side, if you want to drive on a real off-road track and do a lot of jumping, I do not recommend this car at all. Rough terrain, stay away. Anything more coarse than pea gravel is not going to give you a fun time with the DRX. Smooth and low, or bust. The speed on 2S LiPo is also underwhelming, and the low kV motor's need for higher voltage is going to increase your battery costs if you want to go fast. So that does it for this review. Thank you very much for watching. If you didn't like this video, be sure to hit thumbs down on the video bar on YouTube, or if you did like it, hit thumbs up. Either way is very important and helpful for me, and I appreciate your feedback. I've got new videos coming out all the time, so I'll be talking to you again really soon. Bye for now.